A ballistic missile just flattened a neighborhood in Israel, and Israel's defenses couldn't stop it. This is not the story of a near miss. This is not the story of a threat intercepted, a warhead destroyed mid-flight, a close call that the Iron Dome turned into a headline about how the system worked. This is the story of a ballistic missile carrying hundreds of kilograms of conventional explosives that flew from Iran, entered Israeli airspace, and landed directly in the middle of a residential neighborhood in the city of Arad in southern Israel on the night of Saturday, the 21st of March, 2026. The air defense systems were activated. They fired. In both Dimona and Arad, interceptors were launched that failed to hit the threats, resulting in 2 direct hits by ballistic missiles, with warheads weighing hundreds of kilograms. The interceptors missed. Rescue workers said the direct hit in Arad caused widespread damage across at least 10 apartment buildings, 3 of them badly damaged and in danger of collapsing. 10 apartment buildings. 3 on the verge of collapse, families inside, children inside. A 5-year-old girl in serious condition. A 12-year-old boy with shrapnel wounds, so severe he was rushed to intensive care. Nearly 200 people were injured by Iranian strikes in the southern cities of Dimona and Arad. 11 of them seriously. And that was before a second missile found Dimona, a city whose name carries a weight that no other place in the Middle East carries. Because Dimona is not just a city. Dimona is 2 kilometers from the Shaiman Persian research, the facility that the entire world knows exists, but that Israel has never officially acknowledged. The facility that military analysts, intelligence agencies, and foreign governments believe houses the only warsan niyant, a milarasan in the entire Middle East. Iran fired at it, and the defenses failed. Iran's parliamentary speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, looked at those 2 failed interceptions in Arad and in Dimona and said 5 words that should terrify every strategic planner on earth. Israel's skies are defenseless. And then within hours, Trump posted an ultimatum on Truth Social, not in measured diplomatic language, not through back-channel communications, on a social media platform. In capital letters, if Iran doesn't fully open Wisconsin Thout, the Strait of First Ones within 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and freight their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. 48 hours. Iran's response came before the sun rose. The Iranian army said it would target all energy infrastructure belonging to the United States in the region. If Iran's fuel and energy infrastructure were attacked, all energy infrastructure belonging to the United States across the entire region, subscribe to this channel right now and hit the bell. Because what I am about to walk you through is the single most dangerous 24-hour sequence of this entire war. A sequence that began with nuclear sites being struck on both sides Hamal, ran through Saipan, Nijbi Barhouds, being Biskin Biborhouds, being Wati Dai Strokade by Nisses, the most sophisticated air defense network on Earth, could not stop it, and ended with a 48-hour ultimatum that, if acted on, could trigger the worst energy catastrophe in the history of the global economy. Subscribe, notifications on. This is the broadcast that defines the 4th week of this war. First, the sequence. Because it was not random, and the order matters to understand what happened on Saturday, you have to understand that this was not a random exchange of fire. Every move in this sequence was a deliberate response to the move before it. Every target was chosen. Every timing was calculated. Here is the sequence, in order documented. Saturday morning, Iran's main nuclear enrichment facility at Natanz was struck. Iran said the U.S. and Israel were responsible. Israel said it was not familiar with a strike on Natanz. The Pentagon declined to comment Natanz, the facility that was already hit in the first week of this war. Hit again. On the first Saturday of the Persian New Year, the day after Iran's supreme leader declared the enemy defeated in his Nowruz message, Iran's response was immediate, direct, and unmistakable in its symbolism. Iranian state television framed Saturday's strikes as a response to what it said was an attack on Iran's Natanz nuclear enrichment complex, marking a stark new phase of tit for tat targeting in the conflict. Now in its fourth week. You hit our nuclear facility, we hit yours, or rather, we hit the city next to yours. Because Israel's nuclear research center at Dimona does not officially exist. Israel has never confirmed it, but every intelligence agency on Earth knows it is there. And Iran chose Dimona specifically deliberately, and with a message that required no translation. Iran's parliamentary speaker Ghalibaf said he targeted Dimona due to the Natanz nuclear enrichment site. If the Israeli regime is unable to intercept missiles in the heavily protected Dimona area, it is operationally a sign of entering a new phase of the battle. A new phase of the battle. Ghalibaf did not say this after the fact. He said it on X in real time as the missiles were landing. He announced the significance of the intercept failure himself. He named it. He framed it. He told the world exactly what it means. And then hours later, Arad. Hit the like button right now because the sequence Natanz struck, Dimona targeted in direct response, Arad's neighborhood flattened defense systems failing at both sites, is the strategic architecture of this escalation. And it is being covered as separate events when it is one continuous, deliberate, calculated operation. Your like keeps this analysis visible. 2 seconds, it matters enormously. Arad, the city that became a neighborhood of rubble on Nowruz night. Officials declared a mass casualty event as missiles appeared to have pierced the defense array and hit Arad. The strike on Arad appears to have resulted in the highest number of people injured in a single attack since the start of the war. With Iran, the highest number in a single attack. Since the war began, at least 8 killed and over 130 injured, with dozens wrapped under Rodan. The local fire service said there was extensive damage from the Arad strike, with 3 buildings affected and a blaze sparked in one of them. This is a very severe scene, emergency medical technician Yakir Talker said, adding there were many wounded with varying degrees of injury. Walls ripped off apartment buildings, fires in residential structures. Rescue teams searching rubble for survivors. Hours after impact. A 5-year-old girl in serious condition. A 12-year-old boy with shrapnel wounds. Prime Minister Natanz for our futures, Mayor Makan Devtinen, said, very difficult evening in the Campatan for our future. A very difficult evening. Let me tell you what very difficult evening actually looks like on the ground. Because the footage available on social media, geolocated by multiple outlets, shows something that no polished government statement can adequately describe. An apartment neighborhood, buildings that had families in them an hour before. Outer walls collapsed, upper floors pancaked onto lower floors. Glass everywhere, fire in at least one structure. Emergency responders working multiple simultaneous sites, ambulances moving in both directions. People standing in the street in their Nowruz clothes, the new clothes they bought for the Persian New Year, staring at what used to be their neighborhood. The IDF spokesman said, our hearts are with the residents of Arad and Dimona tonight. He stressed the importance of following Home Front Command guidelines. The importance of following Home Front Command guidelines. While people are pulling survivors from rubble, don't go anywhere because the most strategically significant detail of the entire strike, the detail that changes everything, is not the damage. It is what the IDF said about why the missile got through. Not a special or unfamiliar type of munition. The 5 words that should terrify everyone. Here is the statement the IDF spokesman Effie Defrin made about the failed interceptions. The air defense systems operated but did not intercept the missile. We will investigate the incident and learn from it. This is not a special or unfamiliar type of munition. Read that last sentence again. This is not a special or unfamiliar type of munition. This was not a hypersonic missile, not a new stealth technology. not a weapon Iran had secretly developed that the intelligence community had never seen. This was a standard ballistic missile, the same category of weapon Iran has been firing at Israel for 3 weeks. The same type of missile that Israel's Iron Dome, Arrow, and David sling systems have been intercepting throughout this conflict. The same type of missile that the most advanced, most layered, most comprehensively tested air defense network in the world was specifically designed to stop. And it got through twice on the same night at 2 different cities. The IDF confirmed while Israel's air defenses were operational. They failed to intercept the missiles. "We will investigate the incident and learn from it," the spokesman wrote. "We will investigate and learn from it." That is the statement of a defense establishment that does not have an immediate explanation for why a standard ballistic missile defeated a system that cost tens of billions of dollars to build and has been operational for decades. Iran's parliamentary speaker Ghalibaf said, "If the Israeli regime is unable to intercept missiles in the heavily protected Dimona area, it is operationally a sign of entering a new phase of the battle." He is not wrong about the operational significance. Dimona is not an unprotected city in central Israel. It is in the most heavily defended airspace in the country because it is adjacent to the nuclear facility that Israel guards more carefully than anything else it possesses. If missiles can get through at Dimona, they can get through anywhere. That is what entering a new phase of the battle means. Subscribe right now. Hit the bell. Because the question of how Iran's standard ballistic missiles defeated Israeli air defenses at the most protected site in the country, twice, on the same night, is the question that the IDF investigation will try to answer. And when that answer becomes known, this channel will be here to break it down immediately. Subscribe. Notifications on nuclear facility, the tit for tat nobody wanted to say out loud. Here is the most dangerous of Saturday's events. The one that has Russian foreign ministry officials warning about catastrophic disaster. The one that the IAEA is monitoring in real time. The one that every government with nuclear weapons is tracking with profo. Both sides struck nuclear facilities on the same day. Natanz, Iran's main nuclear enrichment facility, was hit in the morning. Iran blamed the U.S. and Israel. Israel denied it. The Pentagon declined to comment. The IAEA said on X it was looking into the Natanz strike, but that no increase in off-site radiation levels had been reported. The Iranian judiciary's official news agency said there was no leakage. Fired missiles at Dimona 2 kilometers from Israel's nuclear research, the facility believed to university believed to house Israel. IAEA said it had not received reports of damage to the Shimon Peres Neganu Research Center, and that no ABE minor radiation levels had been detected. Both IAEA statements. No radiation detected. No confirmed damage to either facility itself, but the targeting has happened. Both sides have now demonstrated willingness to strike in the vicinity of the other's nuclear infrastructure. The missiles hit civilian areas adjacent to the facilities. Not the facilities themselves. But the message encoded in those targeting decisions is unmistakable. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said such strikes pose of ATL risk of catastrophic. The Middle East, Russia, not known for measured warnings about Middle Eastern conflicts, calling this a real risk of catastrophic disaster. When Russia's foreign ministry uses those words, catastrophic disaster, in the context of nuclear facility targeting in an active war zone, that is not diplomatic language. That is a genuine alarm being raised by a country that has its own nuclear doctrine and understands precisely what the escalation trajectory toward nuclear facility targeting means. The Israeli military said it was striking a research and development facility at Tehran's Malik Ashtar University, which it said had been used to develop components for nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. Israel will not allow the Iranian regime to acquire nuclear weapons, it said. Israel is targeting nuclear weapons development infrastructure. Iran is targeting Israel's nuclear research facility. Vicinity, this is no longer a war between conventional military forces. This is a war in which nuclear infrastructure on both sides has become an active theater of operations. Drop your prediction in the comments right now. Is this war heading toward a nuclear incident? Do you think the IAEA's no abnormal radiation statements will hold through the next 48 hours? Drop it below. I read every comment. And if this analysis, the nuclear for nuclear targeting exchange that no mainstream broadcast is naming directly, is giving you the picture you need, hit the like button. These breakdowns take hours to build your like, is what keeps this reaching people. Trump's 48-hour ultimatum, the most dangerous social media post in the history of this war. 24 hours ago, Trump said the U.S. was winding down its military efforts. Then Iran's missiles went through Israeli air defenses and hit a neighborhood near Dimona. Then Trump posted this on Truth Social at 7:44 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. If Iran doesn't fully open Wisconsin Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit in the retaliation. Hit and America will hit and States of America. 48 hours, power plants. Starting with the biggest one first, posted at 7:44 p.m. on Saturday, which means his deadline expires at 7:44 p.m. EET on Monday 3:14 a.m. on Tuesday in Tehran. As of this broadcast, that clock is running. Let me tell you what striking Iranian power plants means, not as a military abstraction, as a concrete, documented cascading consequence for every person on Earth watching their gas prices and grocery bills. Iran's power grid serves a country of 88 million people, hospitals, water treatment facilities, refineries, heating systems in a country where nights are cold, agricultural infrastructure that produces the food Iranians eat. Factories, schools, destroying Iranian power plants is not a military strike in the conventional sense. It is the deliberate dismantling of the civilian infrastructure of a nation. It is a category of warfare that has specific legal designations under international humanitarian law. And it is what Trump is threatening to do in 48 hours, if a 21-mile waterway is not unblocked. Iran's response threat was immediate and specific. The Iranian army said it would target all energy infrastructure belonging to the U.S. in the region if Iran's fuel and energy infrastructure were attacked. All energy infrastructure in the region, Saudi Aramco, the UAE's Jebel Ali, Qatar's Elefan, already damaged 5 years to repair. Kuwait is refineries. Bahrain's terminals. Every pipeline, every refinery, every terminal, every facility that moves oil from the ground to the world's energy markets. If Trump strikes Iran's power plants and Iran retaliates against every U.S.-linked energy facility in the Gulf, what does the oil price do? It does not go to $120. It does not go to $150. Brent crude benchmark is already at $108 a barrel, a 48% surge. Since the start of the war, 48% in 22 days on fear alone. On a war that has not yet directly destroyed major oil production, infrastructure beyond what has already been hit. What happens to that number if every major Gulf energy terminal is simultaneously targeted? Goldman Sachs's models don't go there, because the models are built on scenarios with some functioning infrastructure remaining. A scenario in which Iran retaliates against all U.S.-linked Gulf energy infrastructure in response to Trump striking power plants is a scenario that would require entirely new models. Trump has given Iran 48 hours to prevent that scenario. The strategic logic and the terrifying absence of one. Here is what a genuine strategic analyst would need to believe for Trump's 48-hour ultimatum to make sense as a coherent policy. They would need to believe a country that has absorbed 3 weeks of the most intensive bombing campaign in Middle Eastern history, that has maintained the Strait of Hormuz closed for 22 days, that just successfully fired through Israeli air defenses at the most protected airspace that is celebrating on Nowruz, that declared the enemy defeated 2 days ago, will within 48 hours fully open the Strait of Hormuz without conditions. Not partially, not with restrictions, fully open, without threat. Because those are the exact words in the ultimatum. Fully open, without threat. Within 48 hours, Al Jazeera's reporter in Washington noted there seemed to be a gap between what the White House appears to want in the Strait of Hormuz and what the U.S. military says they have already accomplished. He highlighted the contradiction of Trump talking about a major escalation, given that U.S. officials had been saying all day how much damage they had done to Iran's ability to target vessels in the Strait. The U.S. military said Saturday that Iran's ability to threaten the Strait had been degraded. And then Trump issued a 48-hour ultimatum threatening to obliterate power plants because the Strait is not open. If the U.S. military has degraded Iran's Hormuz capability, why is the Strait still closed? If Iran cannot threaten the Strait anymore, why does it require a 48-hour power plant ultimatum to open it? And if Iran's capability has been sufficiently degraded that the U.S. can now escort tankers, why is Trump posting ultimatums instead of ordering the escorts? These questions do not have answers in any publicly available information. What they have is a pattern, winding down, sending more troops, obliterating, lifting sanctions on the obliterated, calling allies cowards while asking them for help. And now 48 hours, power plants, biggest one first. So said, Iran wants to make a deal, but he does not. Wedi is met, but he does not. Idawin, he has met his goals. That the Ebes has Gadel and that the Ebes has beckoned Iran off of the map. Bet his goals weeks ahead of schedule and then issued a 48-hour ultimatum about a waterway that has been closed for 22 days. That is the war on day 22. Subscribe right now. Hit the bell because the 48 clock Trump set is the most consequential deadline in this entire conflict. Wednesday night at 7:44 p.m. Eastern, either the United States strikes Iranian power plants and triggers the largest energy, infrastructure retaliation in G-Gulf history, or it does not and the world learns that the ultimatum was Federec. Either outcome changes everything. I will be here the moment it breaks. Subscribe. Notifications on. What this means for your money. Your gas, your food, your life. Right now, gas prices have hit a nationwide average of $3.91 per G all on EP, 93 from the 28th of February. When the conflict began, 93 cents per G Allen. In 22 days, before a single power plant has been struck, before any Iranian retaliation against Gulf energy infrastructure has occurred, before the 48-hour clock expires. Goldman Sachs is already projecting elevated prices through 2027 based on the current disruption. Those models were built before Saturday night. Your groceries. The fertilizer supply chain has been broken for 22 days. South Asia's planting season window is closed. The damage to the 2026 global harvest is locked in. The dollar, $20 billion annual cost of damage to Qatar's Ras Laffan gas facility will compound through the food chain over the next 18 months. Your retirement, S&P 500, down significantly since the 28th of February energy, the only sector winning. Every other sector absorbing the blow of a war that just escalated on the same night. To nuclear facility targeting residential neighborhood destruction and a 48-hour power plant. And sitting in the middle of all of this, a 48-hour clock. If Trump follows through and strikes Iranian power plants, every U.S.-linked Gulf energy facility becomes a target. Every pipeline, every terminal, every refinery, Brent crude enters price discovery territory with no historical model. If Trump does not follow through, the credibility of every future American ultimatum is compromised. Iran, having already demonstrated it can breach Israeli air defenses at the most protected site in the country, will have watched the most powerful Nainurth blink. Neither outcome is good. Both outcomes are possible, and the clock is running where we stand. Right now, the 22nd of March 2026, day 23. Iran's Natanz nuclear facility was struck on Saturday morning. Iran blamed the U.S. and Israel. Israel denied it. The Pentagon declined to comment. In direct retaliation, Iran fired ballistic missiles at Dimona and Arad, two cities adjacent to Israel's nuclear research center in the Negev desert. Nearly 200 people were injured, 11 seriously, including a 5-year-old girl and a 12-year-old boy. Rescue workers reported the direct hit in Arad caused widespread damage across at least 10 apartment buildings, 3 of them badly damaged and in danger of collapsing. The IDF confirmed air defense systems were activated and did not intercept the missiles. The munitions were not special or unfamiliar types. Iran's parliament speaker Dekla, Redezies or Shepazis are sent. Tambal Daband. The IAEA confirmed no abnormal radiation levels at either Natanz or the Dimona nuclear center. Russian Foreign Ministry warned of real risk of catastrophic disaster throughout the Middle East. Trump issued a 48-hour ultimatum: open the Strait of Hormuz fully without threat or face obliteration of Iranian power plants, starting with the biggest one. Iran responded, all U.S. energy infrastructure in the region will be targeted if Iran's energy infrastructure is attacked. Gas prices at $3.91 nationally. Brent crude at $108, 48% above pre-war levels. Goldman Sachs through 2027. The clock expires Monday night at 7:44 p.m. Eastern. This is where we are. Nuclear sites struck on both sides on the same day. A residential neighborhood in Israel flattened by a missile that standard air defenses could not stop. Children in intensive care. Rescue teams still searching rubble for survivors. Iran declaring a new phase of battle has begun. Trump giving a 48 ultimatum on a social media platform. Iran threatening to destroy all American energy infrastructure in the Gulf. In response, and somewhere in Arad right now, in the rubble of apartment buildings, in the emergency departments of southern Israeli hospitals, in the homes of families who woke up on the first morning after Nowruz to find their neighborhood destroyed. People are living the consequences of a war that has entered a phase that no one publicly planned for, that no one's models adequately prepared for, and that no one in any government currently has a clear plan to end. Subscribe. Share this video with everyone in your life who needs to understand what is happening. Not the headline version, not the Truth Social post version, not the press briefing version. The version where the missiles are not intercepted, where the children are in hospital, where the 48-hour clock is running. Where the next move determines whether the global energy system survives this war intact or breaks in ways that will take years to repair. Evidence first, analysis second. You decide what it means. But right now, the clock is running. Nobody knows what happens when it stops. Subscribe. I will be here when the 48 hours expire.